gaffes and mistakes as a whole new area opened up. But 20 years ago, you didn't have a president thinking about, becoming a trending topic on Twitter or wondering how many retweets their photo from election night would get. They didn't have that possibility of connecting with the public, and they didn't have that risk either.
Baratunde, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it, and I'm glad we gave you a chance to get warm.
Stay inside if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
stay inside, have some hot drinks, wreck the place. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Keep up the great coverage.
Thank you. With us now, Julie Weiner, who's a Vanity Fair blogger. Julie, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm all right. I understand you've got some pretty strong feelings about the First Lady's haircut?
Yes, Michelle Obama got a brand new haircut earlier this week, and I'm not the only one with strong feelings about it. Actually, the haircut made the cover of the Daily News. I think the cover line was "In with a Bang." So a lot of people are quite excited about the bangs, and as someone who managed bangs for a decade, they are a struggle, and good luck to the First Lady.
So when you say you have strong feelings, are they strong positive feelings?
Oh, they're definitely strong positive feelings. I think that she has such a lovely, shiny, healthy hair that its prominent placement on her forehead is a really good choice.
And let me ask you, as you've watched the coverage today, has anything made you happy?
Yeah, everything's made me happy. I thought it was a really fun afternoon, and there were a lot of surprising things. I loved Michelle's clothes. I loved Antonin Scalia's hat. I liked the clothes of the first daughters. I liked that Malia is very adventurous in the color of her tights. And I also liked watching Sasha. I think her yawn has already been memorialized on a million blogs.
Wait, no, I missed the yawn. When did the yawn come? How did I miss that?
The yawn happened during her father's speech. She had heard enough. He had not mentioned her in a while, I guess, and she yawned. Sort of a very dramatic.
Now, I had read somewhere that their mom had told them at some point during the last campaign how to behave during a speech is pretend you're listening. Apparently, she didn't follow her mom's advice. What else? Anything else make you smile today? Joe Biden, Schumer?
Well, pretending to listen is never bad advice in any context.
No.
But Chuck Schumer was amazing. He seemed to be having more fun than everyone else combined.
He did.
He just seemed like the dad of a bar mitzvah boy, and he couldn't have been happier. He was cavorting around. He was cracking wise. He was poking fun at Joe Biden. He was having a great time.
He was. I love that comparison. That is great.
That really is great. So we live in an era in which we're supposed to say how we feel or what we're seeing, et cetera, on Twitter. We're supposed to tell Facebook and our status. Why is the internet so down on another form of self-expression, poetry?
Poetry, right. People did not like Richard Blanco's poem, which I thought was very inoffensive as far as poems go. I know Eric Cantor sort of scrunched up his face as if in disgust listening to the poem, and that picture was twit-picked and passed around. I don't know that Twitter is intrinsically the most receptive audience to long-form poetry, but or long-form anything.
It's more about haiku medium, for sure.
So I think it is more of a structural issue than the aesthetics of this specific poem would be my literary criticism.
Is there anything you're looking forward to tonight specifically?
Yeah, what Michelle is wearing, absolutely. It's a closely guarded secret. No one knows. I loved her Jason Wu gown at her first inaugural ball, and I'm excited to see what she's wearing tonight.
Any intuition?
None, no. Perhaps not white, because she wore it last time around, and there were a couple criticisms that it looked like a wedding dress. Maybe she'll go with a color, especially since her outfit today was sort of subdued. It was dark blue and gray, and maybe she'll go with a pop of color. She likes color.
Anything from Joe Biden that you enjoyed today?
During the lunch after the ceremony, he referred to Chuck Schumer as pal, which I had just been waiting for him to call someone, hey pal, and he did it. He seemed joyous. His hair was not looking its best, but he seemed in a really good mood, and he teared up when Obama thanked him at the lunch and thanked Dr. Jill Biden. And one of my favorite things about Joe Biden is how proudly and obviously he is so in love with Jill Biden. I think that's really palpable, and I think that's really sweet.
And we have two people in this administration, at the top of the administration, who are proudly and openly in love with their wives. I mean,
Absolutely.
Barack Obama is the same way. It's kind of cool to see.
It is a change from administrations past, without naming names.
Julie Winter, thank you very much.
Thanks
really
for having
appreciate it.
me.
You are a fun guest. Come back anytime.
Thanks.
Let's get it back out onto the streets with Chris Moody, who is, where are you at, Chris? You're at the mall. Okay, hey, Chris. So I understand
Still in
you've
the
been...
mall, not with Baron.
Say that again?
I was just saying, still in the mall. I'm not with Baratunde in the warmth of the office. Still out here, and it's pretty cold here, but people are loving it out on the parade route. You can hear them down there having a great time.
Well, you don't look frigid for what it's worth. You're holding up well. Let me ask you, I know you've been monitoring some of the Republican reaction to the speech, which is already starting to pour in. What are you seeing?
Well, it started out with John Boehner and the lunch with President Obama right here on Capitol Hill. And Boehner offered him a flag, and he said something to the extent of, in the spirit of harmony or in the spirit of unity, and he gave him this American flag. Now, we didn't necessarily see that from other Republicans that responded to his speech. We have to remember President Obama's speech was not mundane. He drew some clear lines in the sand today and took some very liberal viewpoints, promising to take on some big issues. So Kathy McMorris Rogers, who's one of the top Republicans in the House, issued a statement that said, he gave a very nice speech and it's great to have the inauguration, but... and then she went on to say that they need to tackle the deficit, and she talked about how the deficit is ballooning and they need to cut spending, and called on the Senate to put forth a budget, something they have not done since 2009. So clear lines, again, drawn in the sand from both sides here. We're ready to rumble day one.
And the President and First Lady back out of the vehicle, waving at the crowds as the parade moves its way down. Oh, that wasn't them. I was wrong. They're in the Beast. Sorry. There were people waving. I thought it was them, but I was wrong. I apologize. The parade continues, and they're making a turn here. Where would we say they're turning here?
Try to figure that out.
As we figure that out, looks like they may be re-emerging.
Hey, Moody, story idea. You should go into a bar and see whether they're talking about the inaugural.
I can't imagine anybody be talking about the inaugural in Washington, D.C., but now I was just at the cafeteria at the Natural History Museum, and everyone was defrosting in there, but people were chatting about their experiences, what they got to see, what they heard, and everyone's pretty excited. The museums all around here are pretty full. You can't go north of the parade route right now, so people are spending time at the museums along the mall and hitting up the monuments as they can.
As we've established before, the Latin derivation of the term inaugurate is to see portents. And when I said that the first couple was out of the car, before they were actually out of the car, I was actually just seeing portents, seeing a bit of the future. Now they are out of the car and walking down the route yet again. They did this twice back in 2009 during the first inaugural. This is the second time they're doing it today.
One of the things that's amazing is watching. One of the things that I think his most fierce opponents didn't measure correctly. Even when people were uncertain about Obama as the president, his personal approval rating was always and continues to be substantially higher than his job approval rating. And that's, it's an attractive couple. They clearly love their kids. He doesn't seem to have a lot of demons around him in the way that some other presidents have. His private life, as far as anyone knows, is, exemplary. And you're just watching him now, you realize, this is, by historical standards, one of the younger presidents and first ladies we've ever had, even after 4 years. And there is a certain underlying appeal that in looking back on his re-election, one of the things that protected him from the fact that the economy wasn't great, that people were disappointed, was that they still felt this guy trying hard, and we like him, and we hope he can pull it off.
What does a guy like this do after the presidency? I mean, somebody who's this young and whose whole life has been a series of rungs on a ladder. What does he do?
This is a really fascinating question. When a young president leaves, I always thought that had Bill Clinton not had so many scars, he had to give up his law license. He almost, there were questions about whether he had in fact committed legal perjury. He might have wound up on the Supreme Court.
I cannot imagine the most hyperactive man in public life in 40 years, sort of sitting on the Supreme Court, talking to his clerks. If Clarence Thomas doesn't talk during oral arguments...
How about this guy? He's a much more cerebral guy.
This got much more the Supreme Court. And I mean, one of the problems...
There is precedent for this, right? A president's joining the Supreme Court.
William Howard Taft.
I believe you called corpulent before?
I called.
Oh, you did? Okay.
No, I don't use such epithets.
But the point is, look, a guy like this, here's the answer. Once you've been president, you can do pretty much what you want. If you are, and Walter's right, hyperactive like Clinton, you run around giving speeches, you form a foundation, you're constantly in motion. If you're a guy like George W. Bush, you know, aside from the occasional $150,000 pop speech to the Dental Hygienists Association, you don't do much. You get your library in shape and you kick back. If you're Jimmy Carter, you try to go around and even if the presidents don't want you to do, you try to solve international crises. It's a pretty wide playing field if you think about it.
And just on this issue of personal appeal, the president's been shouting some things to the crowd. Let's pot up the volume for a second and listen in as the president and first lady make what may be their final stroll on an inauguration day. Got to be a heady experience. I mean, here's a man who's used to adulation, but it's got to feel pretty good, especially when you don't have to be nervous about keeping your job anymore.
I wonder if he thinks back, oh, you know, not as many people as last time. Or if this is just pure adrenaline.
All I'm thinking about is a perhaps apocryphal story about Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe did a USO tour, returned home and said, Joe, you couldn't believe the cheers. And DiMaggio said, yes, I could.
Wow. So it looks like they're basically at the White House, because that's the reviewing stand right there.
A little break up in the feed there, and that's the bulletproof reviewing stand from which they will watch the rest of this parade, of which we have not seen much yet because the cameras have been justifiably focused on the president and the First Lady as they've made their way from the Capitol. They'll be joined in that behemoth by their families and other dignitaries to watch this lengthy parade.
You know, watching this and talking about the heady experience, I just looked this up. In the days of the Roman Republic, when somebody was awarded a triumphal march through the city, there was somebody who would walk behind him, a slave, whose sole job was to whisper in his ear, "Remember, thou art mortal." And I sometimes think that presidents, I wonder how many people who are around a president ever whisper the political equivalent of that in the president's ear.
I suspect the person who whispers that in his ear is to his left right
That's
now.
a good point.
Yes.
I suspect that Michelle Obama keeps him in line.
Fair enough.
But yes, I mean, when you're a man who's been on the receiving end of this amount of adulation in this country and in others, it's got to be...
You can just imagine how many people are watching this or watching this live feed from around the world. You know, that this is... there are many countries where Barack Obama would have done a little better than 52% of the vote.
Yes, I think that's true. And speaking of this live feed, we appear to have had some momentary technical difficulties, but there it is. It's back. They seem to be having a pretty good time. It doesn't seem to be like a situation where they're going through the motions, nor does it seem like it's all adrenaline either. It seems like it's fun for them.
Well, what's not,
What's
think
not
about
to
this.
like,
What's
right?
not to like if
Yeah.
they're not on their way to an IRS audit? I mean, this is, they're walking.
No, look at those. Everybody trying to get a shot. As we watch this, I want to point out that we learned today that the family of Martin Luther King, and we cannot forget that this is not only Inauguration Day, but also Martin Luther King Day, so historically doubly resonant. They asked Justice Roberts and President Obama to sign the MLK Bible, with which it was one of two Bibles that the president was sworn in on. He was sworn in on the Lincoln Bible, which he used in 2009, and also what's known as the Martin Luther King Traveling Bible, the Bible that Martin Luther King took with him on the road when he traveled. So the King family has asked that both men sign that Bible. So obviously this is a hugely important day to that family that has already had a massive dose of history. Steve Osunsami, an ABC News correspondent, spoke with Martin Luther King's youngest daughter recently, and I believe we have a clip of what she had to say. Take a listen.
You are the daughter of a man who is so important to so many people. How is it bearing that legacy? How do you carry that?
Anything to compare it to, because this is all I've ever known. I've always been my dad and my mom's child, and I grew up with this experience of my father being taken from us and trying to evolve to a place where I fully understood that. So it wasn't really until probably around the age of 16 where I even grasped.
First lady and the president dance with members of the military. So that sounds like
feel like you couldn't make a mistake.
Nicer event. First family, the first lady and the president dance with members of the military. So that sounds like
extremely
a
high.
Bit of a nicer event. But
even people say we don't
people
represent the legacy. Well, they're not like mom and dad. Well, I'm not supposed to be. I'm Bernice. That kind of pressure and those expectations,
a bit of a nicer event.
Make you almost become the kind of person that God, if I make a mistake,
members of the military. So that sounds
it's monumental.
Tell me about the Bible that the president is going to use to swear in.
Well, it's a 59-year-old Bible, at least. We know that. It's at least 59 years old because inside of it, my father has several markings of dates.
During the inauguration, when you see the president put his hand on that Bible, what will it mean for you personally?
Dance with members of the
well,
military.
I mean, as a minister, it's very special to me because I always want people to remember that my father was first and foremost a minister. He was a pastor. In fact, he always said he just wanted to be a great pastor. And I think he was a simple pastor, not just of a church, but perhaps of a nation. And that the leader of the free world has asked to use it in his inauguration, very symbolic, the importance of connecting with that legacy and the inspiration of that legacy.
Does the fact that this inauguration is taking place on the King holiday have extra significance to you?
The fact that there is the collision of those dates in this 50th anniversary year is an affirmation of that movement, and that it was not in vain, that movement is critical to this nation. We still have a long way to go, but we're celebrating so much progress that we have made.
Thank God Almighty!
And our thanks to Steve Osunsami, ABC's Steve Osunsami, for that interview with Bernice King, the youngest child of Dr. Martin Luther King. They, as you heard there, not taking lightly the historical significance of Barack Obama's decision to be sworn in using Martin Luther King's so-called traveling Bible, the Bible that he traveled with, and the family asked me later today that Barack Obama and John Roberts, the Chief Justice, sign that already historic document for posterity. There's Vice President Joe Biden, along with his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, finishing up their stroll. We saw right before that the first couple get back into their presidential vehicle. I assume that what they're going to do now is pull into the White House. They may need to take a little break, and then they're going to get into the reviewing stand to watch the rest of the parade. With us now on the set, Greta Monahan, who is a style expert and a founder and CEO of Greta Style. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We've been talking about Michelle Obama all day. I wonder what your opinion is. Why are people so fixated on her fashion?
Because it makes a successful statement each and every time she's out there. Just like she talks about all of her efforts and the work she does as having a strategy, she does the same with her style, and she makes a lasting impression.
And what do you think, what is the strategy?
I think the strategy is that for her, power is in the details. I mean, pretty much the buzz that she creates in the fashion industry, along with the rest of the world just looking to her to make a style statement, is really intense. And she takes details such as having the suit made ahead of time, having everything fit to the T, having the rest of the family coordinate in a very clever way. This is not something you just do 5 minutes in the morning. This is something that takes thought and takes care. So the fact that she does that for herself, but also through every single member of her family, is really impressive.
Okay, quick gut reaction to a series of things. 1, the bangs.
Love.
2, her outfit today.
Love.
3, the president's sense of style. Does he have any?
Well, the president is a great, fantastically good-looking man, but I'd say the woman behind him is even more impressively dressed.
Would it be seen as strange for a president to step up and become sort of an avatar of a certain style, or do you need to be strictly off the rack if you're president of the United States?
No, you know, I think we all want to know that everything the president is dealing with is far more important than the clothes, but frankly, the reality is that he looks perfect too. He's put together. It's not about his style today, and he's allowing his wife and his children to take that moment, but he never looks not prepared for the job, and that's why style matters.
Right, but he's not rocking a skinny tie and a peak
No, he's
lapel.
not.
I mean, he's like, you know,
no, we don't need to see him in leather pants.
He said this recently. He said his wardrobe is either a blue suit or a gray suit every day. And the reason, he said, is just what you said. He said, I got enough on my mind. That one thing I don't have to think about is, you know, am I going for the Versace or the, you know,